this is what I was going to say. Yesterday, I was watching, for whatever reason, I go on YouTube sometimes and I watch old interview clips and stuff, and I get fascinated by conversations with Burt Reynolds. And lo and behold, ironically, Burt Reynolds was at that very moment, he was doing a retrospective for TCM on Deliverance. He was up on stage during TCM Film Festival. He was up there with John Voight and Ed Beatty, and I'm sure Ronnie Cox was there too. But there's something about Burt Reynolds. There are a few great storytellers out there from the industry. I'm sure somebody like John Waters is one. And I think Burt Reynolds is one as well. He is absolutely a wealth of people. He's known.
I mean, he was one of the most popular when he was on Carson, in his heyday. He was one of the most very popular guests on that show because he's always funny. He's good.
And he was the only actor that he ever guest hosted the Tonight Show, or at least the first.
Wait, when did he get? When was that? No, I did not know that. When did he guest host?
Carson, after the first time that he was on the show, Carson turned to him and said, you want to guest host? And it was like a major deal. And he did guest host. I forget who the guests were when he guest hosted. But they're on YouTube, those clips.
Okay, I'll look for those tonight. Wow, I did not know that. That's amazing. Okay.
He has fascinating stories about Johnny Carson. He said there was a wall that Carson had, and it had some of the biggest names listed on it in his office. And he said, are these like favorite guests or something? And he said, no, those are guests that will never be on the show again. Because I guess they did something embarrassing, or they burned a bridge with Johnny or something.
Right. And he was very serious about that.
He held a grudge. If anyone knew how to hold a grudge, it was Carson.
It would definitely.
Carson was the best, actually.
He was. I agree. 100%.
But I was killed to have Burt Reynolds on the show. Where is Burt Reynolds in the pantheon of cinema history? Because for him, let me preface it by saying this before you guys put in your 2 cents. He says, in his mind, the only performance he's ever given, the only movie he really counts in his career is Deliverance.
I think that's unfair. I think that he's
unfair.
He's selling himself short on that because if you go back and take a look at his career, I mean, let's face it. First of all, he was the number one box office star for about 5 years in a row. So there's that. So that puts him up there with John Wayne and so forth. Now, people these days can make all the jokes they want, at his expense or whatever. But the fact remains that he was very diverse. I mean, he could play really great comedy and things like Starting Over or The End. He could do great action movies. He could do great combo of action and comedy, like he did with Smokey and the Bandit.
Hooper.
I think that he was Hooper, or heck, I mean, he's. I think he's like one of the greats. He's definitely one of my 20 favorite actors. Which is. I know might stun some people, but I'm a Southern boy, and he was always considered sort of a Southern kind of hero.
He's from Florida here. I mean, he still lives.
He's my favorite actor growing up. I mean, and he was a heartthrob. I mean, when he went on the Carol Burnett show, he showed up one night, and he got a standing ovation. I mean, this was in like the late 70s. I mean,
he was major.
Big.
But he's also a guy that has really sabotaged his own career. I think he's one of those people that even when he's given another opportunity, he'll find a way to sabotage it, as he did with Boogie Nights and Striptease. I mean, all of a sudden he was hot again. And you can say, well, maybe he didn't have the choices but to follow through on that wave, but he had choices all the way through his career, and to his admission, he said, I always chose having fun over doing the most challenging work.
That's his downfall. That's definitely his downfall.
And the one that he most regrets turning down is terms of endearment, because that role that Nicholson took was written for him.
Mhm. Wow.
Yeah, I mean, he had done Starting Over, which was written by James L. Brooks in '79. So James L. Brooks obviously saw something in him, rightfully so, because that's a really great, underrated, underseen movie still.
It's an awesome movie. I think we all love that movie on this show. That would be the one thing that we can all immediately agree on, that we love that movie.
You look through his career, and then he has made some very, very chancy choices. I mean, if you think about in '89, deciding to play in a lead role in Bill Forsyth's Breaking In. Bill Forsyth, the Scottish director. Just recently he did being in Citizen Ruth, Alexander Payne's first movie, or Boogie Nights,
right.
Even just recently, he was in a film called A Bunch of Amateurs that was a British production. He played along with a lot of great British actors. In 2008, he did this movie, and the movie, played for the Queen and so forth. It was the Queen's choice for the movie. You should watch this one movie a year, I guess. So, he does take chances and so forth.
I've always had a soft spot for him.
Oh, yeah.
And I always wished that he could get his career back on track. Another guy that I always thought was incredibly charismatic was Don Johnson, and I don't think we ever got a film career from him. But I keep thinking about what could that film career have been like in the mid-'80s, because he was primed. He was primed for movies. He had that movie star quality, charisma.
He did. You're absolutely right. I mean, I couldn't agree more with you, Jamie. And Burt Reynolds, to me, I grew up. He was a movie star when I was growing up. Hooper, Smokey and the Bandit, Gator was always on TV every other week. I mean, and the end, he was, before, I guess for you and me, Jamie, Harrison Ford would be a big movie star in the 80s, but before that it was Burt Reynolds was big star. And I think the disappointment, it starts with City Heat. Why couldn't that was never as good as it could have been.
Yeah,
with Eastwood, that was always that first disappointment.
That's a turning point in his life too.
Yeah,
his life itself started to take a downward spiral around the time of that movie, and I think that his career didn't necessarily recover from it. Boogie Nights was a tremendous boost to him, but his feelings on Boogie Nights is he doesn't like the movie. He loves himself in it, but he thinks, I think the movie is exactly what I thought it would be when I first got the script. He thinks that it glamorizes this adult film world. I don't think that about Boogie Nights.
I don't think that at all. I don't know how you could think that watching that. As someone who knows so much about that world, trust me, it doesn't glamorize it.
Well, I think that Boogie Nights, makes some says, even though it's a sleazy industry, there's still a family-like feeling, at least amongst all of these characters, but it doesn't necessarily.
Yeah, exactly.
But it doesn't necessarily glamorize the thing.
It doesn't glamorize anything. It doesn't. And I think very good in that movie.
When it does glamorize it, it glamorizes it through the eyes of this young man at the beginning of the movie, because he's all wide-eyed and he's very taken by the whole environment of it. But then the tone of the movie changes as his life changes, and his view changes. And he's so incredible in it. I wish he would have embraced it more.
Maybe it's the Reynolds. Maybe Reynolds sees a little bit of his own downfall. Well, here's a theory. Maybe Reynolds sees a little bit of his own downfall in Boogie Nights, and maybe that's what makes him feel so uncomfortable. Because, as you remember in Boogie Nights, the thing that starts breaking things up is the not only just personal relationships and the denigration of personal relationships, but also drug use.
Yeah.
And I think drug use. In his case, pharmaceutical pills and so forth, is the big reason that that his career took a downturn in the 80s. It was because his judgment was impaired, and he probably didn't feel like trying very much anymore, like he had. It was obviously ramping up to do in the 70s, in the late 70s, so maybe
there's
Nights
also the
makes him uncomfortable.
The subplot in Boogie Nights about going from film to videotape, and he didn't really embrace that other stage in his career. I mean, if you think that transition between film and videotape, and you think the transition between being the biggest star on the planet to something else as you get older, he never quite embraced that transition. He still wanted to be that lead action movie star, and so he did film after film in the mid-'80s that were just not even B movies. I mean, they were lower than that. I posted about watching Stick last week.
Oh God, that was disappointing. I saw it in a theater. Wow.
This was like Miami Vice time. So he was actually wearing a hot pink members only jacket in that movie, and I thought, well, that's an incredibly brave choice today. But and then there's the scene where he's standing in the mirror with his hot pink members only jacket splattering on Brute cologne on his face. And I was like, this is just great. But it's a terrible movie.
If you think about Stick and then Heat and then Malone, those were like, and then if you follow it up with Rent-A-Cop, Switching Channels, and Physical Evidence, I mean, that's 6 or 7 movies right there that could easily kill your career. And by the way, previous to Stick was City Heat and Cannonball Run 2. So I'd say that I think that the big turning point in his career was turning down Terms of Endearment to do Stroker Ace. I think that was the big turning point.
Wait, he turned it down to do Stroker Ace, though?
Yeah.
Oh my God! What the?
He wanted to work with Hal Needham again. He wanted to do another, car crash movie and so forth. So, I mean, if you look at his career, it really starts with Stroker Ace, and then that's the big downturn. Because right before Stroker Ace, he did one of the best movies of his career, which was Norman Jewison's Best Friends.
That was a good movie. That's a good.
And I mean, written by Barry Levinson and Valerie Curtin, and great supporting cast and so forth. So I mean, that's that should have been like if he would have followed that up with Terms of Endearment, you're talking going into a whole different realm.
Yeah, it would have taken his career to a different level.